This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, everybody? Ricky Widmer here, along with the one, the only, Brandon Swanson.
Hey.
It's been 2 weeks since I've been able to say that. You know that? It's been 2 whole podcasts where I've been like, what's up? I'm here with not the one, not the only. I'm here with Sean. And Sean just rolls with it. There's one time he said, "Mi amo, Sean," and someone got mad at him for his Spanish, but I finally got to put a little gusto behind that one to start, because the one, the only Brandon Swanson is back in the building. You were not fired there, champ.
No, I was not fired, and I also wasn't just sitting at home playing or watching Hollywood Squares.
No, you weren't. You weren't.
No,
you
I
saw
wasn't.
that? Because Sean, before one of the podcasts, was watching Little Hollywood Squares.
I know, that's why I brought it up.
Okay.
Because he has
I think it was
nothing
the
else
last
to
one.
do with his life right
Well,
now.
you know, Sean, he does a lot for us during the day. He does a lot for us.
He does. But apparently at night he needs to get a little bit more excitement going
But
on.
what a day to be back there, Brandon, because you're coming back at the best time, because it is today. The combine is officially over. We've done our pre-combine. We've done our bus. We've done our sleepers for the NBA draft. And today we get to do our final big board of the season. So if you're new to a big board, what we do is we just go 1 through 25. We start at 25, go to 1, split it into 3 segments for you on YouTube, 3 individual videos. Before we get into the big board, though, a little bit of housekeeping for you guys. Number 1, if you want to support us here on MVP, go to patreon.com/most valuable podcast, $10 tier. You can give $10, and each time you're at that reward, you can become a patron and come on a podcast with us. Anyone, the Onside Kick, the Primetime Podcast, the Fast Break, and you can change and interchange between each month that you're at that tier. Number 2, we have a store link down below in the description. Get yourself an MVP t-shirt. MostValuablePodcast.com also has the store, but it also has everything for MVP each and every day. And then last but not least, if you're on Apple Podcasts and iTunes, go and give the Primetime Podcast and all the MVP podcasts a 5-star rating. And then type a little something. Tell them why you like. Ours still has that SEC review, where apparently all we talk about is the SEC. Apparently that is the only review still up there, so we need you guys to go there. Write some good things about the Primetime Podcast and how much you love listening to the show each and every week. But Brandon, we are now going to get into our NBA big board. How we do it is, like I said, 25 through 1. We split them up into segments. We'll let you go first. Give me your, what would it be, 16 through 25. You would think 4 of these I would get this by now, but 16 through 25, starting with 25. Who you got?
All right, so at 25, I've got Kevin Huerter, strong forward out of Maryland, a newcomer to the board. At 24, I've got Anthony Simons. Sorry, Anthony, we've been saying your name incorrectly for the last couple months as we've been doing this. High schooler, point guard, shooting guard. At 23, I've got Jacob Evans, the shooting guard out of Cincinnati. At 22, I've got Kyrie Thomas, shooting guard from Creighton. At 21, I've got Mitchell Robinson, the center from high school. At 20, Kevin Knox, Kentucky, the strong forward. At 19, John Tay Porter, the center from Mizzou. At 18, I've got Zaire Smith, the shooting guard / strong forward from Texas Tech. At 17, Dante DiVincenzo, shooting guard from Villanova. And at 16, from Boise State, strong forward, Chandler Hutchison.
Well, and then getting right into my number 25, falling a little bit for me, Mitchell Robinson, the center out of high school. Number 24, Zaire Smith, the guard forward, however you classify him. I have him as a guard out of Texas Tech. Then number 23, Jacob Evans, the forward from Cincinnati. Number 22, Aaron Holiday, the guard from UCLA. 21, Troy Brown, the forward from the Oregon Ducks, quack, quack. Number 20, Jalen Brunson, the Illinois native from Lincolnshire, guard out of Villanova. 19, Keita Bates-Diop, the forward from the Ohio State University. Then at number 18, Zana Musa, the forward from overseas. Number 17, Gary Trent Jr., the guard from Duke. And then at 16, Robert Williams, the big man, the 4 or 5, however you want to look at it, out of Texas A&M. And the first guy I want to mention, because there's 3 of them that we have highlighted. The first one I want to mention is a guy who was in your big board, I didn't have him in my big board, kind of as a little preemptive to the news that is coming out this past week that Jontay Porter is thinking, or leaning, I should say, with air quotes, leaning about going back to school. So, Brandon, what I will ask you to kind of open up this topic is basically Jontay Porter. What happens in the draft if Jontay decides, you know what? I'm not going to be like my brother. I'm coming back to Mizzou. I'm going to play another year in college.
Well, I think that after actually looking at what he did over that combine weekend, it may be actually best for him to go back. He's got the skills. He does have the talent. The tools are there, but unfortunately, he didn't show them at that combine. And I have him in my big board. Then you may be saying, Brandon, if you think that he should go back, if you don't think that he had the most impressive combine, why do you have him there? Well, because he does have the talent. There's a number of guys that we can have in our big boards because they have good talent. They've got a lot of upside potential, but he did not show that. He did not show that. He skips the scrimmage. He actually tied for the worst max vertical, highest body fat percentage, and the slowest sprint time. All things that aren't going to help your case. So that to me, and especially being so young, what that's saying to me is I've got some time to improve. If this is where a lot of people are putting me right now, if they're already having me in this conversation, if I'm already here, I can go back, I can improve, I can really tweak some things in my game, and I can come back next year and see where I'm at. And that may be the best decision for Jontay right now.
Yeah, and I mean, the exact thing coming out is multiple league sources say Missouri big man Jontay Porter, younger brother of Michael Porter, is leaning towards returning to school. Porter, it says here, college shooter. I thought that was an actual quote. It was not. It was just them going on with what it is. And for me, how I look at this is a different situation. I almost think of the Miles Bridges situation from last year, but it's different, but in a good way. Like if Jontay Porter was a lottery pick and he's like top 15, top 10, then I would say, no, don't come back to school. Get your money in the top 10. An NBA team up there isn't going to expect to win right away, or depending on where you go, 76ers obviously made the playoffs and they'll be a top 10 team picking because of trade. But I mean, if he was like Miles Bridges last year, I would say stay. But because of where he's at, like many people think he's going to be a post-lottery guy. There's a lot of people, I know the Outcast, Buzz, and Juice and their comment sections. A lot of commenters like, oh, the Bulls at 22 could really get Jontay Porter. And the big thing for me is the body fat thing. And it's something that, like, you don't kind of focus on. But the thing I use with that is you can go back to school, work on what you need to, and just get in better shape. I know you got to deal with classes, too. At the NBA, it's basically you're worrying just about yourself. But that, to me, is like, you know what? I'm going to go back to school, get myself in a little better shape, work on what I need to work on, and then maybe I can be a lottery pick next year. Because really, this year was his coming out party because of the injury to his brother.
Yeah, and I think that, again, like with what you said, with what I mentioned, there's a lot of things that he can improve on. Why come this year? Why come this year where you're going to have to be trying to make those improvements in the NBA then, and it's much more difficult. Like the NBA, if you're there, like they expect you to be able to contribute now, most likely. But I think that, he's got that option, and it's not like he was a senior where he couldn't go back. I mean, you're young. You're still young, and it's okay to be able to go back and work those things out. And truly, better to do that in college than to do that in the NBA when you're already frustrated because you're trying to go out there and be the best you can every single day, but yet you're still trying to tweak your game, do this, do that, possibly huge changes, whether it's to bulking up, losing body fat, gaining muscle, all that kind of stuff. You can do that much more effectively, and I think kind of zero in on that kind of stuff in college as opposed to the NBA.
Well, it's not just that. I think I'm going to use Joel Embiid as the kind of example. You take a guy in the top 5, it doesn't matter if he's not ready to play right away. You're kind of going to be like, okay, I took you in the top 5. I'm going to give you a little leeway to work on your body, work on your shot. And like with Joel Embiid, it wasn't immediately he was contributing. It took him a while to be the Joel Embiid that he is today. When you're a pick, a post-lottery, maybe I'm going to use the example, let's say you do go 22 to like the Bulls, then you're in a situation where it's like if you don't feel like you can compete to the level of where I can stay on the team, Jonte doesn't want to be a guy. Well, no one wants to be a guy where it's like, you know what, I'm drafted, and it's like, shit, I should have stayed in school, really working at this at that level. Now this team is bumping me to the D League, and now I've got to work on it in the D League. And then at that point, really to me, when you're in the D League, it's not impossible, but it's a huge hole to dig out of, because with that, I'd be like, just go back to school and come in next draft.
And that's a huge blow to your confidence then, too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that does not help at all. And then you have that block that could be there mentally with your confidence. And if you aren't able to get past that, that's going to sink you, I think, for your entire then NBA or D League or G League or whatever league they want to call it these days career. And that can ruin a player. It really can.
Well, and I mean, the thing I also wonder, and I don't know this, I wasn't at the Combine, but I wonder if a team at the Combine might have said something to Jonte, like, hey, you know what? Maybe it might be best for like, oh, maybe you should think about this, because on the flip side, the two of the guys that we have in this range, your guy at 16, Chandler Hutchinson, people are saying that he either, because him and Mitchell Robinson both left the Combine early. And usually when that happens, that means a team told them, we are going to draft you if we get to there. So they said, fuck it, I'm outie. I don't need to work for my draft stock. I'm locked right there. And with Hutchinson, people are thinking that it's either I want to say the Bulls are for sure at 22, and I think the Wolves are the other team. Bulls and Wolves were the teams that might have gave him a for sure that they're going to draft him. For Mitchell Robinson, apparently the Lakers were the team that's like, we're going to draft you with our first-round pick if you get there. So I wonder if a team told Jonte kind of the flip side of it, where it's like, hey, the thing that he was kind of getting from teams at the Combine was, whoa, maybe I might fall to the second round, and a team might not take me in the first.
Well, and I think that's helpful, though, too. I think it's better for a team or officials or anything like that, having those conversations. And it's not a we don't want you. It's we want you at your best.
Yeah.
You're not currently at your best.
Because it's an investment.
It's a total investment. As much as the team wants to see the player be able to have a nice big payday because that's good for them, they get to know these guys. They know they're good people, all this type of stuff. But the team cannot put in a big investment to a guy because they think they're nice or they think that they have a good personality. They've got to have that, plus they got to have the skills on the court and, then the body type, too, to be able to handle the NBA when it comes down to it at the end of the day. So I think that is good that they're possibly having those conversations with players, especially if they're players that are on the fence one way or another with how they could go when it comes down to it.
Well, the next guy we'll bring up is Zaire Smith, and he's a guy that fell a little bit in mine because to me at the Combine, the measuring up, no pun intended, Zaire Smith didn't measure up at the Combine.
No, you're right.
Like when they did it, he checked in at 6'4", and that was like a 2-inch difference than what everyone thought. Everyone was saying, oh, he's a 6'6" forward, and it's like, oh, no, he's a 6'4" forward. So, I mean, to me, he's a guy that really kind of took a fall. Maybe it's like, oh, we can't think about him at the 3. At 6'4", I'm maybe thinking about him at the 2, but are you going to take a first-round flyer on a guy at the 2 like Zaire Smith? Like, Dave was even talking to us when it happened on the fast break, and he was like, yeah, this is a guy that I had at the end of the lottery, and now this happens. It's like, you know what? He's definitely not a lottery guy, and the question is, where in the late first will he now go?
Well, I think that, again, you look at this is another young guy, 18 years old, was just a freshman at Texas Tech, a really good player. However, yes, he didn't measure up in terms of what you just talked about, but his max vertical was 41.5 inches. That was better. That was a little bit more positive, especially for measuring in at 6'4". he's got really good athleticism. This is a guy that we've seen be able to run and work both sides of the floor, have great energy on the court. Those are types of things that a team will be able to, I think, kind of build. I don't want to say build around in terms of he's their core player, but you can build off of that because of that energy, that type of athleticism, the skills that you bring. I think that, again, at 18 years old, you're certainly going based off of potential. You don't have everything right now. You're not the complete player that you're going to be come 5-10 years from now. So I put him at 18. I felt like that's around the right spot for him after what we saw happen that weekend in terms of, I mean, like you said, people were shocked. People were shocked that he was, quote unquote, like that small. So it's not necessarily a bad thing for him. He falls from, I think, where he would have liked to have been, but still a guy who's, I think, going to be taken.
And the thing you got to think about also, it's both sides of the ball. Like, if you're 6'6", 6'7", all right, I can play you with the 3, and then in small ball lineups, I can slide you over to the 4, and you can defend a 4 if not. Now you're 6'4", it's like, well, I got to play you at the 2. I'm not even putting you on a 4. That's completely out of the question. And another thing that will come into it, and I'm looking at a Fanside article right here, and it says, to quote, some teams may remove Smith from their draft boards altogether due to his status as a non-shooter. Zaire Smith's NBA dream isn't dead, but it may be on life support. He'll need to give teams excellent private workouts if he wants to stay in the first round of this year's draft. And I mean, you look at his stats from last year, yeah, he shot 45% from beyond the arc, but he only took 40 shots. So it's like, to me, if you're going to be a 2 guard now and not a 3, and you can't shoot, why would I draft you? I mean, for me, I put him at 24 because of, like they said, I kind of feel the same thing. Of like, his dream's not dead, but this was not a good combine week for Zaire Smith, and he's going to have to do a lot of work at private workouts to show, hey, I can shoot. That stat, I can shoot. I just need more opportunities and maybe feel more comfortable in my shot.
It's not just that as a shooter either, though. That's been one of the knocks against him. Oh my gosh! I mean, beyond. I mean, that's. I mean, if you look at what's going on in the NBA right now, and when I say the NBA right now, I mean like the playoffs.
Yep.
I mean, what you're looking at are shooters.
Yep.
Shooters are winning the games. Shooters are winning the games, and we can get back to that later on because I'll have a point on that later too as we go farther in this big board. But it's also his ball handling ability. You know, he needs to get stronger with that, more confident in that, being able to move the floor and drive and everything like that. You add that with shooting ability, you're looking at a possibly questionable player. I hate to say that, but a team isn't going to take, again, a guy and just kind of, we'll take a flyer on this guy. You're not going to do that. So I think that it's important, like you said, for him to have some strong showings for individual teams themselves. And, hopefully he'll be able to grow in terms of those kind of 2 areas. But those are biggies. Those are big ones.
Well, and the last guy we'll mention and kind of talk about is the guy you had out of Maryland at your 25 spot.
Yeah, so Kevin Huerter, and I know that some people may still be wondering who he is, but you shouldn't be if you were paying attention to the combine. Some people may
be saying, like, Brandon, what are you doing? He's a second-round talent at best. Like, there may be some out there that think that.
Well, they can go ahead and think that, and he may very well be, but this was one of the biggest guys to move up draft boards on that combine weekend. He was one of the biggest winners from Chicago that weekend. He impressed in the scrimmage. He had a really, I think, a good highlight reel for his shooting, for his passing ability. 2 great things a team want to see. He also, I think, wooed people with his athletic skills and his testing. 38 inches in the max vertical, a top 10 in lane agility, shuttle, run, and sprint. Now, this is another guy who could potentially, based off of, again, are they because they're still able to. I mean, we just talked about a minute ago. They're still able to go back if they want.
The only thing is, Like John Tay, the reason why he can pull back, if they've signed an agent, then no, they can't.
I'm not sure about Kevin Herter, but I can tell you that
DiVincenzo came in not signing an agent.
But I can tell you with Herter is that this is a guy who already has, I think, really impressed this offseason, and with what he did at the Combine. If he went back to Maryland, just a sophomore, if he went back for his junior season campaign, I could see him, being a mid-rounder or, in the 15s or something like that come next year if he's able to build off of what he did. But he also may want to try and stick it out and stick around here because he is so close. Me having him at 25, other people probably having him in the 30s or something like that, which isn't terribly far off.
Well, and the thing that I look at, and I want to pull up one more guy before I kind of go and make this. Okay, I will go ahead and make this comparison. The thing that I kind of look at is, and I feel like there might be some people that say, Ricky, you throw this comparison out a lot. Don't look at the player I'm comparing him to. Look at what that player does for a team and how he can fit that role, how Kevin could fit that role on a team. When I looked at everything that he brings, so he's 6'7", he's got good wingspan, he's a guy that can defend on the perimeter, can shoot from the perimeter. He's basically your Klay Thompson.
Yeah.
He can do everything. Like, he's not going to be exactly Klay Thompson, but if you're sitting there as a team, late first, early second, even if he's there mid-second, you can go ahead and take him if he's there, and he can develop. You'd have to develop him, but you could basically develop him, put a little meat on them, because really he's like 180, I think, and like Klay Thompson is like 215. So you got to add some muscle to Herter. But I mean, you add that muscle, you develop him right, he could do everything that you need that Klay Thompson does. That one where it's like, hey, you know what? Maybe it's a team that drafts Trae Young, and then in the second round they have a pick, they take him because it's like, you know what? We're going to develop him to kind of be the guy to be next to Trae Young in the future, where, hey, maybe we have a point guard that isn't really the best defender, and we can have him out there and develop him into our main guy to say, hey, you're going to lock down this number one defender. That's more of the Mikal Bridges side of it, but I feel like Herter could be a good 3-and-D guy for a team and be kind of a budget Klay Thompson.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea, and kind of what you were saying with Trae Young, bringing another guy kind of after him, to kind of pair him there. I don't think that's a bad idea. But this with Kevin Herter, and again, there aren't necessarily a ton of things. I'll put the spoiler out there now. Not a ton of things that changed in my big board, but this was probably one of the biggest things of having him coming on. But I couldn't leave him out after everything that he had done, which seemed like everything went right for him at the Combine. I couldn't leave him out of it just because I felt like he had such a jump from a guy that we hadn't talked about. We hadn't mentioned his name. We hadn't mentioned Maryland. And he has that, boom, had to put him in.
I think the only time we mentioned Maryland was on my first big board. I had Justin Jackson, who was injured with a shoulder injury the whole year.
That seems forever ago.
That's the only time that we have mentioned Maryland on our big board. But yeah, I just feel like this range, 16 through 25, this is the range that gets jumbled around from the Combine the most, because guys like Herter come up and they fly up, like Zaire. It's like, oh, he's 2 inches shorter. And then people panic, and some may say, Ricky, you're panicking, putting him all the way at 24. We'll close this off with one last thing. Who's one guy in this range that we didn't talk about that you're like, you know what? I just want to kind of blow some steam up his way and kind of prep him up a little bit, give him a little bit of a spotlight.
Dante DiVincenzo.
Okay.
Dante DiVincenzo. I mean, this guy's an absolute stud all the way around. We saw exactly what he did in the tournament this past year. 31 points. 31 points in the national championship game. I mean, absolutely incredible. He followed that up with a really good Combine. He continues to impress, I think, everybody and all the teams that are watching him. He's a really good player. He's a really good player. And I think that this is the type of guy who is going to find himself a role. I'm not sure what role that's going to be on an NBA team, but he will find one. And who knows? He could end up being a six-man for the NBA because, I mean, what perfect energy to have coming off the bench. You could pour in 12, 15 points, whatever that might be, that would be awesome.
Or he just becomes the next Ryan Arcidiacono and plays for the Bulls in garbage time.
There you go. Or just play for the Bulls because they're garbage.
The guy that I'm going to bring up is Gary Trent Jr. I loved what he did at the Combine. He's one to me, jumped back up into the top 25. I'm not quite sure he gets drafted in 16 to 25 when it's actual mock draft time, but I mean, for me, I like what he did. I like what he does, and another Duke guy to put up there along with him, Grayson Allen, Duval, obviously Bagley and Carter up at the top of this. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Some of the guys we mentioned, some of the guys we didn't, and who are your big jumpers into your personal big boards from the Combine this past week.